Well, joining me now is the Labor member for Parramatta, Andrew Charlton, a member of the House Economics Committee. Andrew Charlton, thanks for your time. After the Dunkley by-election, we've had a couple of weekends which have been a bit tough for Labor, although they're still trying to form government with the Greens in Tasmania. You had the Queensland by-elections and now this Tasmanian result. Does this show you're in for a tough fight at the federal election in a year's time? Does it also show that people are moving away from the major parties a bit?
Well, good to be with you, Andrew. Obviously, those state results are a matter for the state parties, but it's true that the Queensland by-election results were tough, but then by-election results are always tough for incumbent parties. We're focused on the national level at delivering for all Australians. Our tax plan, for example, has just delivered a tax cut for every working Australian, and that's 87% more than the Liberals were offering. So I think that shows that when it comes to the next election, people will know that the Australian government is focused on the issues that matter to them.
I wanted to ask about the low unemployment figure during the week. You've got a background as an economics advisor to a Prime Minister. It was 3.7%, it was down. Do you feel this means we'll have to wait longer for interest rate cuts, as such low unemployment usually means inflation's a bit stickier?
Well, you're right. This was a really remarkable result in those unemployment figures. And for me, those unemployment figures really show two things. First, they show that the government's plan is working. In 2 years, we have got inflation down, we've got wages up, and we've delivered a budget surplus. And the second thing they show is that the opposition really doesn't understand the economy right now. They have spent 2 years saying that if we lift wages for the lowest paid workers, that will cost jobs. And in fact, what's happened is that we have delivered the largest growth in employment in Australian history. No government has delivered more jobs than the Albanese Labor government. In terms of what that means in the long term for interest rates, that's a matter for the Reserve Bank, who act independently. But from our perspective, we're focused on getting inflation down while not having a big spike in unemployment. And at the moment, that's what we're seeing, which is good news for Australians.
Well, OK, it's also been an interesting week for your former boss, Kevin Rudd. Do you have any concerns about him remaining in that ambassador's job if Donald Trump becomes president? How will he negotiate what he said about Trump before to where he is now?
Look, the main concern I have is that we continue to take a Team Australia approach in relation to our ambassadors around the world. One of the best things about Australian politics is that we always put domestic politics aside, and no matter who's in power or no matter who appointed an ambassador, both sides of politics support that person. Labor did it with the two previous Liberal appointees, Arthur Sinodinos and Joe Hockey. And so it's very surprising that the opposition has done a bit of a backflip on their position on Kevin Rudd and started to undermine our ambassador in Washington. I don't know why Peter Dutton is doing this. I don't know whether he's trying to suck up to Donald Trump or whether he's just trying to score some political points. But it's really damaging for Australia for us not to take a Team Australia approach and support our ambassadors no matter who they are or who appointed them. I think on this very program, Andrew, Peter Dutton said just a month or so ago that Kevin Rudd was doing a good job and was respected on both sides of the aisles. That was true then and is true now. So I hope that we can come together as both sides of politics and support our ambassadors, which is the right thing to do.
All right, I wanted to ask you about the religious freedom changes. You've got a very multicultural electorate there in Parramatta. Obviously, this is of interest to your community. A lot of people there would oppose these changes. Do you think they have the ability to offend communities or cause schools of faith to have to do things they don't want to do?
Look, this is something that we talk about in my community all the time. As you say, Parramatta has people from every faith and creed, and this is a really important issue for them. It's a really important issue for schools. It's a really important issue for students, for teachers. When we talk about this issue, everybody agrees on one thing. Everybody agrees that we need to make sure that all Australians feel respected. And the second thing we agree on is that this issue is too important to be a political football. We can't allow it to become politicised, And that's why the government is taking the approach that it has taken, which is to say we'll work on this issue in a bipartisan way and try and bring people together to make sure that everybody feels respected, whether they're a student in Parramatta or a religious school or a person of faith. They all matter and they all have to be respected.